Hey everyone, welcome back to Fandom from Afar. This is Brian and just wanted to do another solo episode here. In episode 1, I spoke about kind of my Nuggets journey and what a rough road it has been up until the past couple of years. And so I thought I'd do an episode today just talking about some of the good stuff, especially this last season. In episode 1, it was a lot of downtime and a lot of sadness, but this past season was so much fun. I just kind of wanted to do a quick review of it because really we got to enjoy it. I think we're getting close to the next season already with training camp just a few weeks away, and I just wanted to kind of reflect on last season just because it may never happen again. The fact that it happened once was amazing. And so I just kind of want to go over some of my favorite points and details from last season so that I remember how I felt going through the whole process last year, what it took to get there, and just really enjoy the moment of being the defending champions. Before I get started, just want to thank everyone for the feedback. This has been a new process and it's been fun learning, and truthfully, I would do it if nobody was listening. It's just kind of fun to have a creative outlet to talk sports. But the fact that a few of you have reached out to me and said that you've enjoyed listening means a lot. And I'll definitely keep doing it, and I'll keep getting better and learning more, I guess, about the process of podcasting. And it'll be fun for us all to go through it together. So, all right, so let's get started talking about this past season. Obviously, going into the season, there was so many question marks. Jamal, MPJ were coming back from major injuries. We really didn't know what to expect from them. Jokic was coming off of back-to-back MVPs, but playing with, we'll say, lesser teammates in the playoffs the previous year. People started to doubt how good he was. But when you look back on that team, previous playoffs when he was taking on Golden State pretty much by himself, he had guys that aren't even in the league anymore, and no team picked them up, like Campazzo and Will Barton, Bryn Forbes. Like these guys were playing major minutes for him, trying to take on the Warriors, who went on to win the championship. He still put up a battle, and I think he earned the respect of the Warriors, particularly Draymond Green, just because he was doing all that he could just to keep them in the game. But when you're outmatched and outgunned like that, there's only so much you can do, no matter how good you are. But I think just in the narrative of the Nuggets, people were questioning, like, would a back-to-back MVP really lose in round 1? But they weren't maybe thinking about the quality of teammates that he had without Jamal, without MPJ. It was interesting looking back on it. But so going into the season, that was one of the narratives of, like, how good is Jokic really? One of the questions was, can MPJ and Jamal come back from their injuries? Can they stay healthy if they do come back? Aaron Gordon, when MPJ and Jamal were out, he had to step up, and it really wasn't the right fit for him. He's not a natural number 2 go-to scorer or playmaker or anything like that. But obviously we saw this year he fits perfectly as your 4th or 5th guy that just does all the dirty work and just he's the glue guy. He plays defense. He'll do anything you need. It just wasn't the right fit for him as the number 2 guy. So in some ways he was a question mark going into the season. And I apologize, I will say we throughout this process because I'm such a big part of the Nuggets team. But we had an interesting offseason, and I will be the first to admit that I questioned some of the moves, particularly the DeAndre Jordan move. A lot of Nuggets fans will remember right when free agency started, the very first signing that was announced was the Nuggets signing DeAndre Jordan. For a few years now, he's been kind of known as someone who's lost a couple steps, kind of fallen off a cliff, and he's struggled in his last few stops. And so the fact that was our first move, and it was the first move by our new general manager, Calvin Booth, it was a big question mark. We lost Tim Conley, who had kind of built the Nuggets up, and he had gone to Minnesota. And Calvin Booth's first move, signing DeAndre Jordan as a backup center, was puzzling. We'll go into it more later, but obviously it was a great move looking back on it. But to start our offseason in that way made me a little nervous. We also signed Bruce Brown. He's always been an interesting player. In Brooklyn, he somewhat played center for them, even though he's like 6'3", 6'4", but he's tough. And he was kind of out of position, obviously. And so we signed him. And I was excited about that just because one of the podcasts I listened to was Zach Lowe from ESPN, and he's always loved Bruce Brown. So it kind of gave me a little hope there. And then we made a trade that we've been hoping for over a year now, which was getting Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, or KCP. We as Nuggets fans just always thought that he would be a great fit as just a 3-and-D guy. We know we need defense around Jamal and Jokic, and so to get KCP, it was terrible having to give up, especially Monte Morris, but Will Barton as well. Will Barton helped build the Nuggets to what they are, but I think it was the right time. He kind of maybe was a little bit past his prime, wasn't really wanting to accept the role the Nuggets were asking for him. And so it ended up being a great deal for us to trade him and Monty for KCP. It would have been awesome if they could have been on the team and got a ring, but I don't think it would have happened if we didn't get KCP. So Bruce, DeAndre, and KCP were kind of our big additions to the team besides the rookies. It took a while for the team to gel. MPJ and Jamal coming back were kind of easing their way in, learning some of the new guys and the way they like to play. It was a little bit rough at first, and obviously those questions were still just coming up every day if you're following the coverage on social media or podcasts or anything like that. And then in December, they really started to kind of put it together, and the offense just was unstoppable. You kind of saw the vision of what this team could be, and it was exciting. Obviously, they fit so well together. Murray and Jokic have their pick and roll that's just the most unstoppable thing in basketball when they're going. And then MPJ, Aaron Gordon, KCP, just learning how to, I guess, exist around that centerpiece of an offense. It started clicking and it was fun. The offense just really couldn't be stopped. Now, I will say they weren't trying extremely hard on defense, except in the fourth quarter. It was almost like a tease where they're just like, oh, we can be good if we want to, and we're only going to try when it matters. And it was working. Obviously, we were winning games, and all these advanced analytics were showing that we actually had a good defense in the clutch time or even just the fourth quarter in general. And so, again, it kind of gave you an idea of what this team could be in the playoffs. With the unstoppable offense, the clutch defense, it was like, oh, man, we got something special here if we can just stay healthy and we can put it together in the playoffs. Like this could be something. Jokic continued to dominate. He was in the MVP discussion, and I'm not going to go too far into it. I've kind of mentioned it before, but man, it just got to be, media was using it as a way to get ratings, and they were trying to tear Jokic apart, not only as a person, as a player, but like associating things with him that had nothing to do with him. It got terrible, really. And I don't know if they'll ever admit it, but I think it got to Jokic, and he pretty much was like, don't give me the MVP. Take me out of this. I do not want to be a part of this conversation anymore, just because it got so terrible and people were associating him with things he had nothing to do with, as far as race or really anything negative that certain media members could bring up. And for some reason they were associating Jokic as the poster boy for that, when he does not care. He just wants to play basketball. So I think it did get to him. And I think part of the reason why they kind of took their foot off the gas pedal at the end of the season, and he in particular, not only was to try and stay healthy and kind of rest up a little bit before the playoffs, but was to just exit that toxic conversation. Many media members who were part of that have kind of come out and, man, that kind of went too far. I feel I made a mistake heading down that path, and I made a mistake after they saw Jokic in the playoffs and what he's all about, they made a mistake of questioning his ability, that's a whole nother topic of so many people that were so adamantly against him then come out in the playoffs and are like, oh, now that I watch Jokic, he's actually pretty good. It's like, oh man. But again, that's a whole nother topic. I'm not going to go off on a tangent of East and West Coast biased of the major cities and how they treat the superstars in those cities as opposed to Denver. So like I said, the team was doing so well. They had a huge lead for they were the number 1 seed in the West, and they had a huge lead over Memphis. And really for the last month, they just were resting. They did not care. While some of their starters played in the majority of the games, they were just playing pickup. They were putting in very little effort. The whole goal, you could tell, was just to stay healthy for the playoffs. Like I mentioned, they had shown that they have the players, they have the right combination of offense and defense to make a run in the playoffs. And obviously with the scars of the last 2 seasons, they just wanted to be healthy. They wanted to be healthy to see what they could do when it mattered most. And so that last month, while it was frustrating to watch as a fan, because there would be some nights where they just put in so little effort that it was obvious they just were not going to win that game. And as a fan, obviously you want them to win every single game, but big picture wise, I kind of understood. So I was trying not to get too frustrated with random losses to terrible teams, but it obviously played into the narrative going into the playoffs as well, with people calling them the most overrated 1 seed ever. Many analysts picked them to lose in the first round, all sorts of stuff. But again, it just goes back to they were going off of what they were seeing on the court and not really thinking about the big picture, which I understand. National analysts can't watch every single minute of every single game, and they're not following along with every detail of every team. So it is what it is. And a lot of times I don't even think that they believe some of those picks. They're just trying to get some ratings. Now, the plan worked. They went into the playoffs healthy, as healthy as we've seen in years, and it was exciting. The starting 5, which I've mentioned to everybody, of Jokic, AG, MPJ, Jamal, and KCP. I don't even know if they had really nagging injuries. Jamal had a little hand thing that he would always kind of shake out his hand, and you'd be worried about it, but it didn't seem to affect him. The bench, we had Christian Brown, Jeff Green, Bruce Brown. They were all healthy. Like it was looking good. The plan of healthy going into the playoffs was a go. And so we started out first round matchup with the Timberwolves. Truthfully, looking back on it, they put up a good fight, and we kind of got lucky in a way because Jaden McDaniels, who's probably their best defender, he's I think a really good young player. For some reason, he punched a wall. It was either right at the end of the season or in kind of like the play-in tournament, and he broke his hand and he was out, which obviously, hey, as a Nuggets fan, I will take that. Naz Reid, who is one of their key bench guys, he was also hurt and out. And so they were down 2 of their top guys. And even with those guys out, they put up a good fight. Like each game was close. They obviously beat us once. Anthony Edwards is amazing. Rudy Gobert is great at defense. I think Cat is one of the most overrated players in the league. While he has extreme amounts of talent, I don't see it happening for him. He thinks he's a lot better than he is, and he loves to just shoot whenever he touches the ball. So not a fan of Cat, but the Timberwolves, I think they're going to be tough. They put up a good fight. Nickeil Alexander-Walker did a great job on Jamal Murray. Like I almost want to say he defended Jamal the best out of anyone in the playoffs. And so the Timberwolves matchup, while it was 4-1, it was tough. And obviously I was nervous every time. And I did not want those analysts that picked the Nuggets to lose in the first round, especially as the number 1 seed, to be right. But man, this team, they were unstoppable. They could not be stopped by the little Minnesota Timberwolves. So moving on to the second round, the Suns. This one was so much fun. Everyone wanted to see Kevin Durant and Devin Booker take down the number one seed, and a lot of people picked that. The Nuggets, they had other plans. It took a couple just amazing historic performances from Devin Booker. He just could not miss. And it's been impressive to see him grow. I think coming out of college, he was a good player. Obviously drafted, I think, around 10 or 12 or something like that. And I've always liked him, but man, watching him in a playoff series, he's elite. Like I was very impressed with him. And those couple games that they won when he, I think, had something like 80 or 90 points between the two games. It took something like that to beat the Nuggets, and the series was tied 2-2 at one point, and it was going to be tough. But again, the Nuggets as a team were on another level. They took care of Game 5, they took care of Game 6, and won the series. But it was because they're a all-around team with the best player. So Devin Booker was amazing. Those two games that he put in were historic, and it might have burnt him out a little bit because he was having to do so much in those two games that he didn't have much left for games 5 and 6. But it was a battle. It was fun to watch. Everyone kind of had great games across the board for the Nuggets, and it was just a great team effort taking on one of the great individual performances that I've ever seen. Next round, Lakers. Oh man, this one was just so satisfying. It was the first ever Nuggets sweep in their franchise history, beating LeBron James, beating Anthony Davis. The Lakers, obviously, they get a lot of hype. They've won so many championships in their past. They always get the superstars that want to live in LA. And the media members obviously love the Lakers as well. So it was just so satisfying to sweep them. And then so bad so that LeBron is contemplating retirement after the series. Whether that was real or not, he might have just wanted a little bit of attention, but that's okay. But it was so fun. Jokic had some crazy shots. Jamal really took it to a next level and showed that he is a legit superstar, especially in the playoffs. And I think this series had many, many great moments, but it was just fun to, as a team, which you'll see as a theme, this was not just one or two players carrying the Nuggets through these rounds. Everybody had a moment, whether it was a big shot, a big defensive play. It was great. I hope I can find some documentary or some video somewhere that just kind of relives all the key moments throughout the games, because I will watch that over and over and over. This series, like, you don't want to say that if the Nuggets would have lost in the championship, I would have been fine because the series was so great, but it was pretty great. And then finally, with the Heat in the championship, people are trying to downplay the Heat being such a low seed, but they've been to the finals in the recent years. They've been to the Eastern Conference Finals. They just happen to have a bad regular season and got the low ranking. And they were a good team. I was really impressed with the Heat. Obviously, I'd be the first to admit they played a lot better against the Celtics in the Eastern Conference Finals, both shooting and just overall as a team. But I think part of that is the Nuggets were just such a good team. There's really no answer when the Nuggets are clicking, because Jokic is so unselfish that you double him and he's going to find the open guy. You don't double him and he's going to score on you every time. Especially Bam Adebayo is a great player. He is a great matchup for so many of the centers around the league, but he's only like 6'8", 6'9". Jokic can bully him. He's just given up too much against Jokic, and obviously even with the height, Jokic can see over him and pass and make all the right plays. So while Jimmy Butler and Bam are great players, it's just a bad matchup for the Heat. And so the Heat, they put up a good fight as well. But like I said, I think the Nuggets were just inevitable. We were healthy. We had the right mix. It was our year. So it was just fun to go through the 4 rounds, which obviously the Nuggets have never made it to the finals before. And it's such a likable group of guys to do it with that I don't want to remember, I don't want to forget the entire team. So for this next segment, I kind of want to just go through player by player real quick, just so I can kind of remember, because as the years go by, I'm not going to remember the contributions of some of those lower bench guys, but I think everyone had a part in this. And this will just this will be like my diary journal of like, hey, old man Brian, remember this guy? And it'll be fun just to look back on someday. So let's go player by player real quick through the roster of our NBA champion Denver Nuggets. So the first category is 3 young guys that hardly ever got to play, but I think were a key part of the team. And so those 3 guys are Colin Gillespie, Jack White, and Peyton Watson. Gillespie, he actually broke his leg in summer league and was just kind of a bench cheerleader for us all year. But I think he's got a great kind of team personality where he was a cheerleader that supported the guys. He is a veteran from Villanova, so he knows basketball. So I think he was still able to help him there. And I think he's such a hard worker that the team saw him putting in the time and the effort to do his rehab that he kind of earned the respect for them that way. Jack White, from Australia, played at Duke. I still think he can be like a good bench player. He didn't really get a chance in Denver. I think he's a good kind of effort role player, good rebounder. But again, great guy on the bench just to have that morale and keep the energy up. And then Peyton Watson didn't really get a chance to play this year. We're hoping for big things from him this upcoming year. But he was in the G League quite a bit, then on the bench and back to the G League. He was kind of back and forth. Many players in his situation could have had a bad attitude. He was a top recruit to UCLA. He didn't do well at UCLA, but he was still a first-round pick for the Nuggets. And he's got all the potential in the world. But obviously on a team as talented as the Nuggets, he's not going to get to play right away. And a lot of first-round picks are not going to be happy going down to the G League. But from everything I've heard, it sounds like he had a great attitude. He worked extremely hard. And it was obvious by the end of the year that he had improved so much. And so not only for last year, just having that great attitude and not being kind of like the Debbie Downer in the locker room because he's not getting his minutes, but also the hope for this year. I'm excited to see what Peyton Watson brings. There were a couple guys that we traded for right around the trade deadline, Thomas Bryant and Reggie Jackson. It really didn't work out. Both guys played a little bit once they were traded for, and we were actually hoping for big things from both of them. We knew we needed an upgrade for the backup center, and Thomas Bryant is talented. I think he even had a game against the Nuggets earlier in the year where he scored like 20-something points. He can shoot. He's good. But for some reason, it just did not fit with the Nuggets bench. And every time he came in, they just got destroyed. It wasn't all his fault, but it was definitely a common factor that when he was in, we were getting outscored by a lot. So eventually Coach Malone just had to bench him, and it was amazing. He kept a great attitude the whole time, and he got his ring, and he ended up signing a contract this offseason with another team. But again, it could have gone so differently with a lot of other players if they were traded for. They're in a contract year. They're not getting minutes, but he seemed like he was a positive part of the Nuggets locker room. And I think you'll see a theme here. They just created such a culture that it's all about the team. No individual player is bigger than the team. And so you didn't have a chance to have a bad attitude, or you were going to stick out like a sore thumb. So Thomas Bryant, kudos to you, man. He had a great attitude, even though things obviously did not work out the way he was hoping for. And then Reggie Jackson, again, we were hoping for a backup point guard that could come in, run the show, really distribute, score when you need to. And again, it just did not work. Our bench was getting destroyed with these guys in there. And eventually he just had to be benched. Bruce Brown took over or just really continued as the backup point guard and did a great job. But Reggie, man, he was there. He was a good veteran, just not playing. And so it was interesting. Our two big trades we got zero out of, but I'm guessing their major impact was behind the scenes. Is just positive impact veterans in the locker room. Next up was Ish Smith, another guy. He came over in the KCP trade at the beginning of the year, and he was always our third point guard. He played a little bit, but not much. He's been on, I think, an NBA record number of teams. I want to say 14 different teams. And so he's seen it all. And I think he was just a good veteran leader for everyone. And I think he truly appreciated being on a winning team that he probably could tell had a chance to do something special. And I have nothing bad to say about Ish. He was only with us for 1 year, but it seemed like everybody loved him, and he helped us win a championship. So if he plays for 25 teams, I'll always remember him as a Nugget. Next up is Zeke Naji. Man, he just can't catch a break. He every year comes in, added something to his skill set, or he's bulked up so that he can handle the physicality of the NBA a little bit more. And he'll play really well in the preseason or early in the season, and then he gets hurt. And then once he gets hurt, Coach Malone just will not play him anymore. Or he'll be gone for so long, and then it'll just be really clunky once he gets back in the rotation. And he has just never really been able to get a spot in the rotation. And Zeke, again, had a year like that last year, but once again, culture-wise, never complained. He was right there cheering everybody on, and I got to give it to him. He is still waiting his turn, even though I think we're going into his 4th or 5th year, and we're expecting big things from him this year, but he just can't catch a break, and I hope this is the year for him, especially he's a champion now, so pressure's off in that sense, but now he's got to fight for that next contract. Vlatko Cancar. A lot of people thought that he was just on the team as like token European Jokic's best friend, but he can play. I think best suited as maybe like a backup power forward or center, and just almost like a playmaking big. I'm not going to say he's anyway as good as Jokic, but he grew up in the European systems playing unselfish team basketball, so he has some of that in him. And I always enjoy when he plays. He can shoot a little bit. It always just seems like he's the happiest guy on the bench. So again, culture-wise, he was great, but he never really was able to get in the rotation and take over that spot as like kind of a backup big for Jeff Green. But he does everything you need for him, and can't ask for more than that. And unfortunately, he already tore his ACL this year, so he's going to be out for this upcoming year. But Vlatko, I think, behind the scenes, big part of the Nuggets culture. And then that brings us to the best friends on the team. Just two guys that seem like they couldn't be happier being around each other, is Jeff Green and DeAndre Jordan. Immediately in training camp, you could see that these guys were buddies. I think they were in Brooklyn together, so they already had a pre-existing relationship. Man, they're hilarious together. They just keep things light. They're obviously older guys, so they have that veteran leadership presence. But I think their personalities are so big, which is great because both Jokic and Murray are more of the quiet, stoic types. And so to have these guys on the bench, in the locker room, in training camp, they were organizing team activities, going to baseball games and all sorts of stuff. I go back to when we were talking about the offseason before. DeAndre Jordan is like a vibes leader. He keeps things light, but he's not afraid to call you out if you're not putting in the effort, if you're messing up on a play. He's the first one to go over and grab someone, and he's giant. So, of course, no matter who he grabs, he's going to be kind of looking down on him, giving him that dad look and just being like, hey, you need to step it up. and it just seemed to work so well. And so with he and Jeff together, Jeff was playing a lot more. DeAndre was kind of the leader of the bench, the leader of the locker room, and it just worked so well. I think it rubbed off on a lot of the other guys that maybe didn't have the vocal leadership reputation or the outgoing personality before. It just seemed like everybody was having such a good time, and I think that's huge when the NBA season is so long. And then when you go through 4 rounds of playoffs, that just adds on a couple months right there. So again, I was so wrong about the DeAndre Jordan signing in the offseason and pair him together with his little best friend, Jeff Green. It was amazing. And I am so happy we brought DeAndre back for this upcoming season. I have never been so wrong about a signing, and I'm so happy he's still on our team. Then we had the Brown brothers, Christian Brown and Bruce Brown. Similar players. Bruce Brown, a little bit older. Christian Brown's a little bit bigger. But, man, what they bring is exactly what the Nuggets needed. They need on-ball defense, make a shot every now and then, but they will never give less than 100%. They're perfect for a bench unit. When you just need some energy, you need some plays, they'll make stops on defense, start the fast break, and then both have these amazing, like, thunderous dunks that get the crowd going, and they're both more than happy to play up to the crowd when that happens. And so that just kind of snowballs on itself when you have bench guys that can do that can play so well with the starters. And it's just, they were perfect. They didn't expect to be superstars, especially on this team. They filled their roles amazing. In Christian's case, I think it's only going to get better. He's kind of stepping into the Bruce Brown role this year. Bruce got a huge contract with Indiana. And so I'm excited to see what Christian can do. But those two guys together were exactly what the Nuggets needed. And it was just beautiful to watch. I'll be quick on the rest of the guys because we talked about them before. But the starting 5, starting with KCP, perfect fit, 3-and-D. He's a leader. He's won a championship before. I think that was big going into the season. Is he's done it. He knows what it takes to go through an entire season and win that championship, and so now he's a 2-time champion, hopefully soon to be 3. MPJ, it's hard to imagine what he's been through with all the back surgeries, and he's still dealing with issues from the back surgeries that impact his leg. Like, I think he still has drop foot and has to wear a brace, and I'm sure his athleticism is not where it once was. And so just to deal with all the rehab that he's been through, the expectations that were placed upon him when he was a high schooler or even going into college, but it's most players, they would not come back from one major back surgery, let alone multiple ones. They would not deal with still superstar expectations, not only because of his talent, but because of his contract, and keep the same attitude that he does, because not only is he dealing with all that, he's asked to just take a back seat and be almost like a glorified role player because we have Jokic and Murray. And so many players might put up with that for a year or 2. He's done it his whole career. He does what Coach Malone and the organization asks for him. And I still think there's more that he can do, which is such a luxury for the Nuggets to have. But to have a 6'10" guy that can hit every 3 from every spot on the court, he's a great rebounder. It seems like he's a great teammate. Like, I don't know. I just think it's pretty special what he's accomplished already. And I just think that I think he's going to have a breakout year this upcoming year. It has to be remembered what he has gone through to get to this point and what he's sacrificed to make it work on the Nuggets. And obviously I don't think we would win the championship without him. He had a bad series in the finals. He couldn't hit a shot to save his life, but in the first 3 rounds, he was key in so many games and hit so many big shots. And I love MPJ. I think he's the man. Aaron Gordon, what an amazing trade. It's really unbelievable to think that we got such a key piece to our championship roster and pretty much gave up nothing. We gave up Gary Harris and some draft picks. And Gary, love him to death, but he got hurt every single year and kind of had lost a step. He's still a solid player, but nowhere on the level of Aaron Gordon. And the draft picks are at the end of the first round. It's fine to give those up for a player like AG. So couldn't be happier with the trade. Obviously, it happened right before Jamal got hurt. So we had that infamous 9-game stretch where we looked like the best team in the league and we were putting together something special. And then Jamal tore his ACL and we had to put all that on pause for 2 years. But AG, he will take on the toughest assignment, whether it's a point guard, shooting guard, small forward, power forward. He doesn't care. He played backup center for us in the playoffs and did a great job. He has a great balance of he will score when he needs to. If other guys are cooking and he just needs to step back and do the dirty work, he does it. I think he has just an amazing attitude. He seems super laid back and just kind of chill. He's intense on the court. Seems like a great locker room guy. I love what he has brought to the team. DNVR has categorized him as Mr. Nugget, which is pretty much a non-superstar that just exudes what you want a Nugget to be. He loves Denver. He loves basketball, and couldn't be happier that he's on our team. Jamal Murray, coming back from that knee injury, pretty much missing a year and a half. By the time he really got into form, it was basically 2 years. The doubt that the doubt that would be in your mind with a major injury like that, questioning whether you're going to be the same player, whether you can do it again, whether you're going to get hurt again. I just can't imagine. But Jamal's kind of shown throughout his career that he's one of the most mentally tough athletes possibly ever. And I think part of that is he steps his game up to a whole nother level in the playoffs. He thrives when the pressure is high. Now, we obviously saw that in the bubble when he was having those amazing games, and then he got hurt, so we didn't get to see the next couple playoff runs. But then this run that he had for the championship, he and Jokic are number 1 and 2 in all of basketball history for an increase in points per game from the regular season to the playoffs. Both guys just step it up when it counts, when you need it. And this year, it obviously paid off in a championship. Jamal has definitely gone from like, oh yeah, he's a good player to he's a bona fide superstar. Great. One of the greatest Nuggets of all time. He's still young, so can't imagine what he and Jokic are going to accomplish moving forward. But he is special. And yeah, it's terrible that we lost those 2 years, but those 2 years might have really focused him and made him the player that he is moving forward. So we got the championship. I wouldn't change a thing. And last, our boy Jokic. What can you say about him except every time you set a goal for him and think, oh, it would be crazy if he did that, he does that and more. Every time you think that he's kind of reached a whole nother level and be like, oh man, he's amazing, but what if he did this? Then he does that and more. It's not ridiculous to start thinking about him as one of the greatest players ever now. Not only because of the awards that he's won, the way he makes everyone better around him, the fact that he's winning championships now, he's still young. What can he not do? And the funny part is, I don't think there's an answer for that. He's right on track to be an all-time great. He's already won 2 MVPs. He probably should have won a third this year. He's won a championship. His first championship came at the same age as the greats. Like, I think right around 27, 28 is when Michael Jordan won his first. LeBron won his first. It's not out of the question that he puts together multiple championships, more MVPs, and you just start thinking about him in that upper echelon of all-time greats. And it's just so fun that he was the little chubby kid from Serbia, that second-round pick that nobody knew of, and he's going to go down in history. So we love Jokic. We're going to talk about him much, much more, but I've talked long enough for today. I wanted to thank you guys so much for listening to this. I want to remember last year forever, and hopefully this will help me do so. If you can, please give us a 5-star review on Apple and Spotify. Give us a follow so you can hear all the latest episodes coming out. And thanks for joining us.